We begin with, I'll start from the first intervention. We'll begin with Barry Ward. Barry very properly gave his compliments and commendation to the personnel, the emergency personnel involved in the airlift at Killiney yesterday. And he progressed from that to make the point, and very valid point, that while the summer weather is beautiful and enchanting, and we're all delighted with listening to Evelyn Cusick this morning, who's retiring from RTE, and indeed we all should take this occasion to wish her well. She's one of the great personalities and the very great human face of the Met Office. She's retiring today, but the point was made today on the radio earlier that we can expect a very good weekend and very good weather into the coming days, and that's very charming and wonderful. But Senator Ward is absolutely correct. With that comes the potential for tragedy, and it is a time for great caution and great care to be taken. And while people enjoy the seas and our rivers and lakes, great care must be taken, and people should obey the various instructions, the safe swimming areas and all instructions, and not go off on solos out of approved areas. So all of that is important. We had a shocking tragedy in Clare yesterday as well, and our hearts go out to that family. So I agree with you with that. In relation to you bring in legislation which I'm happy to accept, to accept the amendment to the order of business, and you propose and you explained your legislation very succinctly, even for us lay people, in that you say a person could unwittingly be in a situation where they would only get 80% of a repair of a house, having anticipated they would get it all, and that on the averages clause, and that has shocking potential, as you said yourself, in a time of high cost in building, etc. So I certainly agree with you. I think it's a very, very appropriate legislation, and you certainly are. You've on a number of occasions now, Senator Ward, been at the forefront of bringing in new legislation, and this is another example, and congratulations to you on that, and I'm very happy to accept it. You give the very good example of the 300,000 case where somebody could lose 80% of that, 60,000, which in the contemporary situation would be very wrong. Senator Murphy, of course, welcomed the ambassador from Italy, which we all do, obviously, and did. And then you talk about the briefing from the Irish Cancer Society yesterday. And yes, the VAT rate on sunscreen products is something that merits debate. And the entire area of cancer, availability of drugs, a shortage of availability of drugs at the moment, and costs, etc., is all an area that needs to be kept under review in this House. And I personally think you're right, it should be discussed on a regular basis, and we would need the Minister for Health to do that. And I'm sure the leader of the House is in our presence at the moment, and I'm sure she was listening acutely and attentively to that. And you make a very, very good point. And it's particularly in the weather that's in it now, it's a particularly pertinent point. But I suppose we, again, would be urging caution in this area. Skin cancer is a real risk, and if people can manage at all to purchase sunscreen, they should and use it. And I know you're not suggesting the contrary, but there should be a VAT. The VAT should be examined there. In fact, an entire debate in the whole area of cancer, as I suggested earlier, would be welcome. Senator Cogan mentioned some aspects of the migration issue and the polling on Sunday. I don't have to tell Senator Cogan, as an experienced political operator, that you have to take some of this polling with a pinch of salt, if you like, or you have to take it in context, and often more probing questions are not asked. But yet, it does pose relevant points, as you say. Your basic point about information of the public, the Taoiseach is committed and has committed himself to try to improve that with Minister O'Gorman, how we can inform our people better, and how we can speed up the provision of more accommodation, and all of that. So those kind of practical responses that you suggest are important. And you are correct that it's an ongoing issue. Now, I do have to make the point, and you won't dispute this, I know, that every one of us in this House have a moral responsibility to show leadership in this area. I've been confronted with it a number of times at home myself, and I'm happy and proud to say that I did the right thing. And I know that Senator Cogan and everyone else here would do the same, but it should be done. There can be no ambiguity. We don't forget Ellis Island. We don't forget the coffin ships. We don't forget the no dogs, no Irish. We don't forget the history of immigration in this country, the way that we were social outcasts abroad, that we went off in disease, famine ships. That 1 million people died in the Irish famine, and subsequent to the Irish famine and around it, 1 million people were forced to emigrate. And that's a shocking statistic. And also we are all, some of us, are even aligned to the Christian Democratic Party, but whatever we're aligned to, we are Christians by and large, and we know what the Sermon on the Mount says, and we know what the doctrine of Christ says in these areas. So while all the points you make, Senator Cogan, are welcome and helpful in the sense of how we organise ourselves, how we provide more speedy accommodation, how we provide it quicker, how we inform our public, etc., we have a moral responsibility to be unambiguous in our welcome of the new people to this country, and that also to be very cognizant of the tragedy that brought them here, whether it was the war in Syria, which is one of the horrors of contemporary times, or whether it was the illegal invasion of Ukraine and barbaric invasion of Ukraine. And no later than last night, I think 3 people were killed in Kiev, and 2 of them children. Horror statistics. And our hearts can only go out to those people. We're very lucky in this country. We take so much for granted here that we have all sorts of peace here. Senator Lombard raised the question of the importance of organic farming and how it can never be the Cinderella of farming. And he's absolutely correct. In fact, we should revel in the context of the Green Agenda, in the context of a more health-conscious age and everything. We should revel in the development of organic farming. We should be supportive of it. And I know that Senator Boyhan is a constant advocate for organic farming here on other occasions as well. But I certainly agree with Senator Lombard in this sphere, and that we should be very supportive of our organic farmers, and if anything, they should experience positive discrimination. Senator Lombard is a long time, as you alluded to, Cathaoirleach, advocate of the proposition by Senator Murphy that we reduce the VAT on sunscreen products. I've heard him at it in the past a number of times, and he again supported Senator Murphy today, and the 2 of them are voices of reason in this House, and I think they merit listening to on this one. And it's a very important area, and particularly if we're to believe the upcoming trends in weather patterns and the kind of summers that we can anticipate in future years. Senator Craughwell is a constant, and I have the privilege of serving on the Foreign Affairs and Defence Committee with Senator Craughwell, and I also have a special friendship with him arising from the fact that we were both involved in teacher trade unions in the past, and we have a history there. But Senator Craughwell raises the issue of cyber security, and he does this regularly. And I suppose you don't need a better example than the health services here. What happened in the health services here. And as he put it so well, the cyber criminal only has to get lucky once. We have to be lucky so many times. And I can't recall the name of the gentleman from Cyber Ireland, Larkin, indeed. Pat Larkin, who said that $1 billion should be invested here. We are thankfully, and without being getting into the politics of it, I think through prudent management of our economy and incentivisation of foreign direct investment over the years, we're in the happy position that we have the kind of money to do this. And I think that is necessary expenditure. And I agree with you, Senator Craughwell. I think that we need to be very out here, Avant-Garde are very proactive in this area and to take the necessary steps to do. Sorry, I didn't get to the. No, okay. So I certainly, it's cyber criminal industry, as you say, it's a cleaner issue than the drug industry, and I think we need to act on that. And I support you in that matter. I think it should be debated here, and I will support a debate on the Foreign Affairs and Defence Committee on it as well. And I'll support it from the floor the next day you raise it as well. So we will, and the leader is listening. I don't have to promise senators that I'm going to inform the leader. The leader is actually listening here acutely to what's going on. So I presume she's taking that on board. And the leader couldn't but be aware of the risk of cyber attacks. And they're a very real risk, and they're happening all over Europe as we speak, and we need to be very vigilant, and well done to you for bringing that forward. I've been asked, but, sorry?
I already made a contribution to sponsor an apprenticeship. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. I wanted, the Cathaoirleach has just asked me, and very appropriately, to welcome the young people from Lucan, the students from Skyline in Lucan. You're very welcome, and your teachers, and it's wonderful to have you here. To the houses
and the leader and I might jointly offer you a no homework night tonight.
I think I would support the Cathaoirleach in that, and I think the teachers would have to listen to it with a pending bank holiday and the weather that's out there as well. Yes. So certainly that should be the case. To move on, Senator Boyan.
That requires a motion. Sorry.
Senator Boyan has raised a matter that I had the privilege of sitting on Cavan County Council for 20 years, and I suppose there never went a week by but I heard this issue raised. And it's back to the future for me to be here in the Chamber, in the Senate, and have it raised again. And it is no less relevant. In fact, it's becoming more relevant every day. And you are right, we do need clear rural housing guidelines. We do need to build rural houses. I personally believe we should go back to the practice. In fact, I have a press statement sent out at the moment on this, of building rural, what they called historically, really the rural social houses. They used to call them in rural cottages. I think they should be built by local authorities. They were cease building them in latter years. I think they were a wonderful thing for the balance of communities, for integration, for 1,000 reasons. But there were 1,000 reasons that we should be building them. And so I agree with you.
Thank you, members.
We should have very clear guidelines in relation to rural houses. They should be issued quickly. And we will bring that point to the relevant ministers that you raised. It's a very important point. And I think it's we have cases where families, there's 3 or 4 generations of families in one location, and they want to build there, or children want to build there. And often it's difficult for them to establish a local need, but the local need is that they want to live there. They're going to live there, and they're not building a house as some fanciful exercise. It's a very serious commitment, and they should be supported. I would take issue with you, Senator Boyan, mildly in one area, and I know that you won't have a problem here, but I dispute your thesis that rural Ireland is in bad shape. Actually, rural Ireland is thriving at the moment. There's a number of factors working, but it will thrive better.
You know the rules of the House, and there's no interruption of the leader. The leader's applying to the order of business.
Yeah, or I'll ignore your issue.
And we should show a good example to the students who are watching.
To move back for a moment.
Thank you.
We've had the injection of new people to our rural communities. We've had a lot of investment, notably by my colleague, Minister Heather Humphreys, constantly investing in rural Ireland, the Sports Capital Grants Programme into rural Ireland. And in fact, my experience across rural Ireland at the moment is that we have very vibrant, living communities. But that's not to dispute your very wise thesis, and your thesis that arises from a lot of experience in local and national politics. And you are right, Senator Boyan, that we should have clear guidelines and that we should be proactive in allowing people to build in rural Ireland. I'm not disputing that. Now, to move to Senator Ronan Mullen. Eintiam go mór leat fi stadas na Gaeilge sa tír seo, tá sé iontach tábhachtach go mbeadh míid ar son labhairt na teanga lífach sa teanga agus athbheocant na teanga, agus spéis agus grád ar nairach ar tíre. Agus tá mé lán I bhábhar sin, tréisliam go mór leat fin ábhar sin. So is fiú díospóireacht margheall ar an méadúra atá tugad do Gaeilge, agus mollam don ceannara an pointe sin cumad ina agna ar fatna bli in the seachtaine seo thugainn. It's an important point you make, Senator Mullen, and a very important point you make. I personally and it's a slightly lateral point, but I'm constantly of the view, and your championing of it would help, and every member of this House, the big thing we need to do in relation to the Irish language, and we can afford it now, thankfully, as I said, for a lot of good reasons, we should work proactively on getting young children, young people, like those lovely young people who are here, to go to the Gaeltacht. Therein lies the key. And to get them to go on a regular basis or two, and even to go once, and they'll develop a love of the Gaeltacht, the physical area, the people, the whole heritage. And I had the privilege of going to the Gaeltacht as a very young teenager, at 13 or whatever, and it gave me a lifelong love of Irish music and all this tradition. And I see you agreeing there, Caoirleach, and those of us who had the privilege of teaching for some time appreciate this point. I think get children to the Gaeltacht is the issue. But we have to work on that. Every time we have a debate on the Irish language, Senator Mullen, who comes in for those, will know that I bring that point up. But we have to get more done about it. Now, you raised the question of around the 3-day delay in the abortion issue, and you raise an interesting figure of 4,000. And you are right in saying, Senator Mullen, that when we put the issue to the people a few years ago, the issue went to the people with that part of the legislation, And it is something of a negation of democracy and of the will of the people to immediately seek to overthrow that. Now, in relation to the bill that was passed, and I actually believe that to be the case, and I fully get that, and I personally believe that we should not be extending the periods, the amount of time before abortions can take place. I think these are arbitrary steps that should not be taken in light of the prescribed legislation that the people voted through. But I will say, in relation to the second stage legislation passed last night, that yet, Senator Mullen, as you appreciate as one of the most able legislators in the House, you know that yet has to go through committee stage, has to go through report stage, that it has to go through the health committee, there has to be a government response, and there is a whole process there. But I am agreeing with you, we have to tread very carefully here. We have to respect the wishes of the people, we have to respect the dignity of life and the dignity of the human being and human life at all times. And I think that there can be no ambiguity around that. And that we have a moral responsibility on, as well as I mentioned other moral responsibilities earlier, but we have a moral responsibility there. And it is appropriate that you should bring it to the floor of the House, and I congratulate you on doing that. I did say, Caoirleach, that I'm accepting the amendment as proposed by our good colleague Senator Ward and seconded by Senator Lombard.